Hey guys, my name's Cravone, and today I'll be doing, well, not really that much of a newbie video for once. This is going to be more aimed towards intermediate players, particularly players looking at doing clan wars and team events like strongholds or team battles or tank companies. So the topic today is going to be in regards to following orders in a battle that an FC is given against using your own initiative. So using initiative in a battle is effectively when you don't follow an order, you think you see the right course of action for your particular tank, and you decide to do it instead of specifically following orders. Now, there's a bit of a tie-in here. Like some orders that you are given, you can still use initiative with. But it's sort of striking the balance between making the most out of what you're being asked to do. I mean, you are an individual player after all. For me, as someone that FCs on a very regular occasion, and I've FC'd quite a long time, I prefer in my players in a battle to be able to follow orders but also know when to not follow orders, which is the key thing. Now, so this video is aimed at intermediate players, because beginners to clan wars, okay, the best thing for you to do is follow orders to a T, because there's certain things that going into clan wars, going into strongholds without any prior experience, every player makes the same mistakes. They don't push forward when they're told to because they think they're going to die. They basically put the survival of the tank above the team, which you need to ensure the survival of your tank, but not at the expense of the team. And it's quite hard to explain this. I'll give an example. A few weeks ago, I field commanded a battle on Sam River. Now, I won't go into the details of the strategy we used because I don't want to give away my tactics, but we used two IS4s well, I can't go into it, but basically we got rushed one way and we were set up to counter a rush. So we were set up to counter that tactic. Now, the opponents had 5 TDs going the other way, and we had 2 IS4s, and we could have pulled back the 2 IS4s to help defend, but we wouldn't have been able to flank because the TDs would have stopped our mediums, would have killed our heavies. So I gave the order for our 2 IS4s to go and fight the 5 TDs face to face. Now, that kind of order is extremely hard for someone that's new to clan wars to grasp. I mean, they might think, oh, there's 5 big hitting TDs. I'm in an IS4 with just one other IS4. I'm going to die. Now, yes, in that situation, you will probably get destroyed. But the point is that we won that game. We won that game 15-2, actually, with our only 2 losses being the IS4s, because our IS4s were able to hold up the enemy TDs for quite a long period of time, giving us sufficient time to take out the rest of the enemy team. Now, that was a strategic call on my part that, okay, we're going to lose 2 tanks to nothing, seemingly, but we're going to be able to flank the enemy team because we've held them up. And people need to realise that if a field commander gives you a command which is going to be your death, you still need to follow it. However, this is when initiative can come into play. When you're told to go to a position which is going to put you in considerable risk and probably will get you killed, well, you can still use initiative. You can keep your tank alive as long as you can while still being there, through angling, through kind of covering allies, if there's more than one of you. Basically, through finishing tanks and tracking them as well. That's another thing. If you are sent into a position where you're going to get destroyed, if you can kill tanks for that, that's really important. However, the flip side is, us FCs, we don't just want 15 players who are mindless drones that mindlessly follow the orders without thought. We want players to be able to use their initiative. They follow orders, yes, but they find their way to do it. Okay, so in heavies, this is probably the one where you don't want to be using that much initiative. If you're in a big group of heavies, your focus is on getting a good formation, getting good focus fire, covering allies. Your initiative is basically making sure that you're at the front if you've got the full health, and that you're at the back if you haven't got the full health. So that's sort of the initiative. Going round the corner, getting kind of a surround on the enemy team if they're in a firing line. That's initiative. You have to keep going to get the surround. And then obviously it's positioning in that. But I mean, all in all, I guess there's also angling in that. All in all, there's not much initiative to be done in heavies like that. When you're in smaller groups, then there is initiative required. For example, mediums require quite a bit of initiative. Like, I might ask in a battle for our 3 or 4 mediums to go and take the Abbey in the map Abbey. Now, I have told them to take control of it. I've not told them how to do that. So it's up to their initiative on whether they go up the main road, go up the side road, or whether they actually go into the Abbey itself at all. So it's very much up to how they feel like playing it. I give scouts a lot of initiative. Like, I give scouts pretty much free reign. Now, I will point on the map where I need a scout to be. It is up to the scout player, and I take the people with the most amount of initiative in scouts. It's up to the scout player where he positions his tank to spot that spot that I need spotted. And players with good initiative will have a way out, a way to run away and keep their tank alive. Now, for people who have really good initiative and are really good players in general, this is what I tend to see most when they use initiative. It's mostly they will flank the enemy team. They will move their tank into a position where they can flank without being told to. Now, flanking is always good. As long as they do it safely, I completely back that up. I want them to be doing that. However, it takes some experience to kind of... It takes some experience to know when it's appropriate to do that. So I would say, like, field commanders that are not field commanding the battle but are in the battle will normally know when to use initiative. But I guess I would say understand what the FC is trying to do. Understand why he is making those decisions. And when you decide to like flank or use initiative, make sure it's for the benefit of that plan that he has. And if ever in doubt, you should call it on TS or whatever voice software you use. Call it and just say, I'm flanking or something like that. And if he doesn't want you to flank, he'll tell you to not do it. That way, you've used the initiative, but if you have got it wrong, then it's not too late to kind of pull back. Another point of initiative comes when, for example, you're decapping, but you need to still focus fire. So, I'll paint the scenario. You've got probably 5 or 6 enemy tanks in the cap, you've got about 5 or 6 friendly tanks there. If you just try and decap, you are not going to win that exchange, because they're going to end up killing your tanks because they are focus firing, you aren't. Now, when you're decapping, you should always have like a player who's able to use initiative that will decap for you. And what I find is, when you're decapping, you still need to get people to focus on the same target. You need to focus on killing tanks. Get this other person who's got initiative, allow him free reign to shoot whoever he wants, because he's going to be shooting the ones who have the cap points. So there's that. Initiative also comes at the end of a battle when there are very few tanks left on both sides. It's a good idea to let players play their own game in that stage, because if it's like 2 or 3 tanks against 2 or 3 tanks, there's not much field commanding you do in that, except it's more, what my experience is, it's more kind of advising the 3 remaining players in your team. So let them play. I mean, let them use their initiative. Let them work together. If it's someone that's not that great, then you do need to sort of micromanage. But if you've got someone who can use initiative at the end of the game, they can be the difference between a win and a loss. Now, an example of when you would disobey orders using initiative are basically, let's say you're in a medium group, and your team's got a heavy group. Your heavy group are taking point against the enemy team. Your medium groups have been given the order to rush in and flank, but you see an opportunity where instead of rushing and flanking to the side or nearer the front, you see an opportunity that you can quickly get behind them. Now, it's actually acceptable to not follow the field commander's order of flanking from the side if you can get round quickly to the back safely and basically hold there and keep firing. If the enemy team are not looking at your medium, well, you don't have to be moving. You can just keep firing at them. So that's kind of a time when you are given the command, but you can basically do something else. It's the same goal that you're going for, the same aim, is to get multiple different directions on the enemy tanks, but you're performing that order in a way that's different to what's been specified, and sometimes that can really pay off, especially if the enemy team decides to turn to your mediums and blast them. You're the medium that's going to be staying alive, but you're not going to be doing any less damage than your other mediums. In fact, you may even do more. However, there are some commands which you always have to follow, no matter the situation. If you're told to get onto cap, you have to get onto cap, no questions asked, no hesitation. You can't use initiative there. If you're told to get on cap, then it's basically a win or loss situation where you not getting on the cap could cause a win to turn into a loss. Same with decaps. Decapping is, you absolutely must do this. Pushing forward, if your group is told to push forward, you need to push forward. There's no stopping and hesitating. You have to push forward with your group, because that's strength in numbers. You have to use that. The FC's relying on your strength of numbers, so he's relying on everyone pushing in. So no initiative there when you're being told to push forward. When you're told to take out a certain tank, that's when it gets a little bit hazy, because let's say you're in a medium and you can one-shot an IS-4 from the back. but your team is told to fire at the Waffenträger because the Waffenträger's biggest threat. Now, you will normally want to be firing on the Waffenträger. However, because you have almost guaranteed on the kill on the IS-4, it is worth firing and taking that IS-4's gun out of the game, even though it's going to be doing less damage than the Waffenträger. Number one, you're not guaranteed to kill that Waffenträger. Number two, you almost are guaranteed to kill the IS-4. So, I mean, with focus fire is extremely important for groups, but if you see a tank which you can finish with one shot and you've got a quick reload, always finish that tank. Doesn't matter what it is. Although, yeah, actually it does matter. If it's like something low tier in Clan Wars, don't bother. That's a wasted shot. Now the flip side of focus fire is big alpha TDs. Now, I want to say an extension Arty, but Arty is another story. I've got a video on what to shoot at as Arty, so check my channel for that. I won't go into Arty in terms of initiative because it's just a mess. Arty is 100% initiative basically, put it that way. Except when you're asked to fire at a certain target. But for big alpha TDs like the Jagdpanzer 100, the Death Star, even to some extent the Waffenträger with the derp cannon, you shouldn't be shooting targets which have 100 health in those big TDs. But there are some situations where you should. Now, when you are picking your targets in those tanks, you want to be hitting the target which you can get the most alpha on and still kill with that one shot. So let's say you're in a Jagdpanzer, it does 1000 average damage. You want to be hitting the target that's on 999 hit points. So that's the perfect thing. You don't want to be wasting your 20-second reload on something that's got, say, 50 health. You've got other tanks that can do that. But this is when initiative comes into play. You need to know when that tank is dangerous enough that you have to take it out. If there is a mouse, doesn't matter what health he's on, you should be taking out that mouse if you have the 310 mil penetration that the FV183 has. You need to be using that, or indeed the Hess shells. You need to be using that. Take that mouse out of the game, because some of your teammates might not have an easy job of taking him out, even if he is low health. So you have to keep that in mind. Think, well, if I leave this tank, is there another tank to take it out before it can fire again? Most cases it's yes, because there's mediums and heavies, they can take him out. But some cases it's no. And it's when it's no that you need to be taking the kill shot yourself. Because otherwise you can get overwhelmed as well. Now I'm going to go over an example of a good player using initiative and an example of a bad player using initiative from real examples that I've seen when I've been FCing. But before that, I am going to remind that initiative isn't arguing with the FC. Initiative is not saying to the FC, oh, but this is the wrong thing to do, or but I'm going to die there. When you're using initiative, you should be the only thing you should be saying is, I'm going to flank, is this okay? And then he'll say yes or no. Any order that he gives, you shouldn't debate. But sometimes you may see a situation where he may have forgotten to give a command. But it's something where he's probably going to be in the heat of the battle because it's going to be a hectic time. And you think he hasn't seen this. Now, second guessing the FC is quite a difficult thing to do. But occasionally there's something he's missed. Like, Okay, an example in one of the old clans I was in, we had 3 FE215Bs round a corner, and we had a group of about 5 or 6 IS7s, and they were basically going to tank an enemy rush. The enemy team rushed our IS7s, and our FC was one of the IS7s, and we didn't have a sub-commander for the FE215Bs. These were the heavies with stupid damage per minute. Now, he never gave the command for our FEs to push around the corner, and there was a moment there where pretty much all of us could clearly see this is when we need to flank. So we did kind of come around the corner and flank without the command being given. Now, after the battle, the FC did confess that he had completely forgotten about us. Now, we second guessed because we knew that was his whole intention for our huge damage per minute heavies to be round a corner so we can get side and back shots on the enemy team. His whole intention was to use us to flank. Now, he was so busy in the battle that he actually forgot that we were there. Now, using initiative is what allowed us to still salvage that fight, because we all came round the corner, because that was the right thing to do, and we knew that was what the FC had wanted at the start of the battle. Now, a good example, trying to think, a player I knew from a previous clan is a good example of initiative. Now, I would always play a group of half heavies and half mediums, and I would try and get map control on a certain map, which I won't mention because it might give away a strategy. But basically, we'll get a surround on the enemy team from 2 different directions. Now, this guy would always be in an FE4202 or a Leopard 1. Now, I would play him as a scout sometimes, but on this map we didn't use scouts. Now, what he would do, and I noticed this pretty much every game, I would tell my mediums to cover one entrance, my heavies cover the other, and the third entrance would be left sort of completely alone because there was no advantage for us to use it. Now, this player in the FE4202, he would pretty much every game be the one that goes round to the third entrance without being asked when we decide to push in, and he would always top damage because he's getting side and back shots on the important tanks we need to take out. And I would not mention anything about it. I mean, he wasn't specifically following what I had told him to do, but he was doing something that was sort of better. I mean, he was using his initiative, and it's like, well, I don't want him to stop doing that, so I didn't mention anything about it because it was a good thing. Now, he wouldn't ask it on TS. That was my issue, because we had a situation once where there was a pattern spotted that had shots on that third ramp, but the pattern had been unspotted for quite a while. Now, this was before they added the extra minimap stuff into World of Tanks, and you basically only had that if you had mods. And so he goes around to this third ramp, and he gets annihilated by this pattern, and that was the only time where his initiative backfired. And I mean, at that point I was like, okay, I allow you to do this every game, but please at least tell me when you're going to do it, because I saw that pattern as an FC, but he didn't. Now, that pattern killed him, and as a result, I think we lost that game. It may not have been just because of that, but we lost that game. Now, a bad example of someone using initiative is that we used to have an FC who wasn't that great, I'm going to admit, and he was quite argumentative. And occasionally, when we ask a group of tanks to rush the 1-2 line, he would go instead to the 3 line on his own in a heavy, and that is not what we want, because we need our heavies grouped together at that situation. So it's, and he wouldn't request it. He would be argumentative. A player like that, I would rather just blindly follow orders rather than have to deal with him doing something stupid or making huge mistakes. So yeah, that's a bad example. Someone that's argumentative, someone that decides to go one way that's not supported directly by his allies, someone that's meant to be in a large group of tanks, so he's meant to be in a formation, and he's gone off on his own. And that's initiative, but that's really, really bad use of initiative. Had there been tanks waiting on that line, he would have been obliterated. He probably would have got maybe one shot off, but that would be a tank gone for absolutely nothing. And hit pool exchange and tank exchange is hugely key to any of these team events. Now, I apologise for the really long credits video. I didn't expect the video to be this long. I did post commentary, and well, it wasn't really commentary, and I didn't record enough video for it. But yeah, that's basically it for following orders against initiative. As I said at the start, this is aimed for intermediate players with Clan Wars. Advanced players already know this stuff, and beginners and newbies to Clan Wars and Strongholds shouldn't be trying to use initiative until they're experienced and understand how things work, until they're able to push forward if they're told to do it, and die in a certain position which stops the enemy team gaining an advantage. So yeah, thank you very much for watching. Like, comment, subscribe, and everything else that you're always told to do. Actually no, if you don't want to, don't do that, because that's quite rude. Just telling people, oh, do this, do that. So yeah, I'm going to be different. I recorded a lot of this on the US server on my, well, I've got an account on the US server. I basically do it to platoon with any of my mates on the US server. So yeah, I tried to hide my in-game name on there, because I don't want too much pestering on that account. That's not actually linked with my Twitch or YouTube. But I might be playing on it a lot more in the future. But yeah, thank you for watching, and I will see you later.